Hey, Chicago, what do you say? This is the CHGO Cubs podcast presented by PointsBet. Use promo code CHGO when you sign up to get 2 risk-free bets up to $2,000. Hello and welcome in to the postgame show. My name is Corey Friedman. I have the very difficult task of filling in for the venerable Luke Stuckmeyer this evening. I will do my best. I am joined by Ryan Herrera. Welcome back to the studio. He's been on the road, coming back from Iowa.
Oh, yeah.
Good to have you. And Cody Del Mendo, of course, on the end there. Button undone. Vibes are good.
Somehow.
Vibes are good in the studio.
Got a little chest hair pop
Joey,
through.
he put the camera on me. We're just, the Cubs just blew yet another game here in 2022. Everything sucks, but I did win a parlay, and if you rode, then God bless you and your family. We won some money tonight, but this team sucks.
Yes. Some of the vibes in the studio are good. The vibes with the Major League Baseball team, not as good today. The Cubs have been playing well, won a few series in a row, but they do drop this one to the Nationals 5-4. They led this game 3-0 in the top of the 5th. Some good stuff in this game. Ian Happ, a really nice game. Franmil Reyes showing off the wheels. We'll touch on all of that. Marcus Stroman with an okay start. Probably would have been better if not for a Zach McKinstry error. But all in all, this had the feel of a game that I think we've seen a lot from this team. It was winnable, but a couple mistakes here or there. They're not getting blown out. They're not playing terribly, but they found a way to lose this game.
Before we go any further, Luke is was he at Door County? Yeah, Door County in Wisconsin. Why he decided to go to Wisconsin, to take days off to go to Wisconsin? I don't make decisions for him, but bold move, Cotton. But that's why he's not here. Jack asked in the comments, so I just wanted to...
Not where you would vacation.
No. I would not go to Wisconsin for vacation.
Cody doesn't want to run into any Brewers fans while he's getting a little R&R.
Among other people, yes.
Right.
But yeah. But anyway, that McKinstry error, that not great. Everyone in the chat, there's a lot of DFA McKinstry, a lot of DFA Leiter Jr.
Jack Leiter Jr. or Mark Leiter Jr. I got him mixed up. He was good tonight. 2 1/3, 1 hit, 3 strikeouts.
Right.
I'm not sure why we're hating on him.
I think he's the one who gave up the lead, but the runs went unearned, right?
Well, they were unearned, and there wasn't also
right,
runs.
Yeah.
I don't get it for today. Like you said, 2 1/3, a hit, 3 strikeouts. He's out of the bullpen at least has been pretty good. Granted, most of them are low leverage innings. So, it's not like he's getting thrown in there in spots that Brandon Hughes or Roe Wick are getting thrown out there. But he has been, he's been a guy that can go out there, cover some innings. He's not going to shut down everyone, but he's right there.
He's been fine. He's
not
the biggest problem.
No, he's not the biggest problem right now.
I am a little surprised about the people who are done with McKinstry, a guy who. Honestly, over the last week has been okay. Okay, he had an error tonight, but I don't think he had a hit tonight, but he's actually been okay over the last week.
Yeah.
Just
a walk tonight.
Does that mean that that he should be that he's going to take over the infield for 600 play appearances? No. But he had one bad play.
Yeah.
I get it. I get people are mad, but this team isn't going to – it's not going to win anyway.
Well, and I think he's one of those guys, you got him in the Chris Martin trade, and you have to give him a little runway.
Yeah.
You may not like what you've seen so far, and certainly he struggled with the Dodgers coming into the trade with the Cubs. But the whole point is to give him some playing time and see if you have something there. It hasn't started well, but you can't cut bait this early.
This whole chat is it's time for the McKinstry experiment. It's been 2 weeks, something like that, since they got him.
I to a degree, I guess I get it, right? You watch these games. If you're going to tune in every night, it does get kind of frustrating, but I think you have to keep the perspective.
He had a really nice defensive play yesterday, though.
You have to keep the.
It's not wins and losses, and there's no point in making a trade for someone like McKinstry if you cut him after a couple weeks.
If this team was in it and they were neck and neck with the Brewers and Cardinals and they lost the game this way with McKinstry, I would totally understand why people would be done with the McKinstry experience.
But at that point, they wouldn't have traded for him.
True.
That's
They wouldn't have traded Chris Martin.
It's time to, what does Luke say? Explore.
Yes.
Right?
Explore. It's time to explore.
I think we have seen worse from certain players on this team. And Zach McKinstry, the very first 4 or 5 games, there was not a lot to be excited about. But again, like the last week, he's been okay. Like, hasn't been great, he hasn't been bad, he's been fine. Like, he is versatile defensively, and he's shown to hit the ball all over the diamond too. So like, I get not being high on him, but to just say that they need to just dump him right now. I mean, that's like me yelling or me complaining about David Ross because I think he sucks as a manager. Like, it's lazy. Like, be better. I don't know what else to say.
I mean, it's just like I mean, Fran Reyes has had a good week since he came back. Say he struggles this next week. We sit back in these chairs next week.
True, there you go.
Chat is going to be full of why did the Cubs
DFA
claim Fran Reyes DFA?
With McKinstry too.
I can see that.
I suppose you could play Morel at third base. You could play Wisdom at third base. But with the opening at first base, they were showing on Marquee Wisdom doing some ground balls with Mike Napoli. He's going to lean into playing first more clearly, right? McKinstry's not really taking playing time from somebody that you'd rather be seeing out there.
It's not because what?
So whatever.
Yeah, he's playing third base. I mean, Wisdom's over at first, but like, who's Wisdom taking? I mean, is he taking third? I mean, Rivas and Schwindel didn't lock down that first base.
They had a shot.
So they had a shot. Didn't take advantage of it. Now, they're moving Wisdom over to first base, giving McKinstry a shot. It's been what, just over 2 weeks since he started playing. He's not playing every day either.
He might stink,
right.
but
if we're going to
time
sit
to figure it
in
out.
the chat, and if me, Luke, and Corey and Ryan are going to sit here and complain every week about Rafael Ortega leading off, 31-year-old Rafael Ortega, I think it's kind of hypocritical to sit here and complain about Zach McKinstry, who's like 27.
Yeah, he's just a guy that never really got a lot of major league experience because he's been trying to come up in the Dodgers system when the Dodgers are competing for a World Series every year. It's like, this is the time to, like you said, just give some of these guys a shot, see what they got, give them extended shots, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. I mean, the Cubs are now 16 or something games out of the playoff race right now. We'll talk about a certain bet that we saw online later, but it's just, so it's like this is a time where if you have a guy who you think, hey, maybe he could show something, maybe he could be a piece for next year that could help this team not be bad next year or just a little bit better, win some more games, whatever. If they have that kind of faith in a guy like McKinstry, then they might as well just play him as much as they can. Yeah, and we've talked too a lot about the 40-man issues, decisions that the Cubs have as it relates to guys like Matt Mervis. I think Darius Hill is doing really well in the minors, and maybe there are guys you might be more interested to see, but do the Cubs want to do that roster maneuvering to put them on the 40-man and then carry them there in the offseason when they have so many choices to make for the Rule 5 draft? I think in the interim, at least, they're going to look at guys like McKinstry and say, hey, if he shows us something in a month and a half, great. If not, we'll revisit this in the offseason. Same with someone like Franmil Reyes, too. Like, I think they're all kind of in that similar boat. But enough on Zach McKinstry. Although it's a good transition because he does play, unfortunately, a pretty key part in this game and a key part in Marcus Stroman's line. So Marcus Stroman goes 4 2/3, 6 hits, 4 runs, but none of them earned. 1 walk and 4 strikeouts. The bottom of the 5th inning starts with what was originally ruled as a hit to McKinstry, changed to an error, which changes all of those runs from earned to unearned for Stroman. So, I guess you would call it probably a disappointing start for Stroman, but he probably should have been through that 5th inning with no runs allowed. He ends up throwing 94 pitches total in the game. That number would have been less. He should have had that first out. Then he got a double play ball that also wasn't turned. So he should have been out of the inning much earlier. You can't get rid of that stuff. And then he did give up, some hard hit balls and some hits. But he probably could have gone 6 innings in this game and had a decent start here. So the numbers don't look great, but the box score maybe doesn't tell everything about Marcus Stroman's night.
I'm just glad that the MLB changed it to not earned because his earn run average didn't deserve that.
Yeah.
And I know all the casuals who have been out on Marcus Stroman for months would have used this as a way to blame him, despite the fact that it really wasn't his fault anyway. So, yeah, I just didn't want to read those tweets. So I'm glad that they changed it so I don't have to read those tweets. Yeah. But he was really good going into that fourth inning, and it was kind of a nice bounce back for him because he didn't have his best start against the Nationals last week.
Yeah.
And he gave up a few long balls last week. Didn't give up any homers today. So
he was able to keep Ruiz in the ballpark.
Yeah,
tonight.
yeah. He was, I wish he would have had a hit. I'll talk about my parlay eventually, but anyway, yeah. And the bullpen was fine. I know a lot of people down on Leiter Jr. I'm not even high on Leiter Jr. I just think that it wasn't. I mean, what is it? You didn't even. It's. I don't even know what to say. Like this wasn't even as bad as what we've seen before. Leiter Jr. No. At this point, I don't really know where the Cubs see Leiter Jr. I think they see him as maybe a multi-inning reliever at best, but they have so many arms down in Iowa that like they can afford to lose him. I just think he is an innings eater.
He's an innings eater, which you need at this point.
And that's like, especially at this point in the year, I think a depth pitching piece, a depth long reliever that probably on a playoff team he's not. Right. He doesn't have much of a role if he even has one on a major league team. But right now, I mean, he's a guy that as guys like Keegan and Justin start already past, I think, or at least nearly past their like career high in innings pitched. As just guys that need to finish the season. If a guy has a short start like Stroman did today, not totally his own doing. You need a guy like Mark Leiter Jr. who can go out, cover a couple innings, and just kind of cover a couple innings, but also keep the team in the game. Like he was okay today. He wasn't like, we saw he had a few good pitches there. We were just kind of watching swings and misses, stuff like that. And I mean, he's not blowing anything by anyone. He's not making hitters look crazy foolish out there. But he saw today. He had one hit over 2 1/3. Like 3 strikeouts. Like it was a fine performance for what the Cubs needed him to be.
Well, and especially you talked about Steele and Keegan, and even, in September when they bring up some more guys, you want to be able to use those guys very particularly. You're very particular about how many innings Keegan's throwing, how many innings Steele's throwing, things like that. The way that you're able to make that work with a pitching staff is guys like Mark Leiter Jr., right, who can come in, eat some of these innings. They don't have to have any implication for the 2023 Cubs, right? Like you said, Ryan, I would bet a good amount of money that Mark Leiter Jr. does not pitch playoff innings for the Chicago Cubs at any point, right? But if you don't have those guys who can eat those innings and get outs at some point without the game taking 5 hours, you can't be as careful as you want with those other guys. David Ross and Tommy Hotovy only have so many guys available to them. Like somebody's got to get outs. And, Leiter Jr. right now, I know people are in the chat are not super thrilled with, Michael Rucker and stuff. And again, nobody's sitting here, championing those guys for high leverage bullpen innings, but somebody's got to get outs, right?
Yeah, right.
That's really what it comes down to.
You see less of the Leiter Juniors and the Michael Ruckers if you have a starting rotation that can consistently give you 6 innings every night. And that's been the biggest issue with this Cubs team all season is the lack of starting pitching that can go deep in the games. Now they've gotten better as the season has gone along, but again, if McKinstry doesn't get the air, maybe they get out of that 4th inning and Stroman's pitch count isn't high and he's going to the 5th, 6th, like you said, then you probably don't even see Leiter Jr. In this game if we're going to use this one as an example. But, he is a guy, like we keep saying, will eat innings when the Cubs are either up by multiple runs or down multiple runs. I don't think they will ever use him in major high leverage spots. And, he's been better than earlier in the season. I'll give him that. I'm not saying that he's convinced me he should be on the 2023 roster, but he's kind of shown that, if he's anything for this Cubs team, he is just a depth piece that you can bring back from Iowa or keep up for when an injury happens or whatever.
Which you need.
Which you need. And so, he's never going to be someone that people are going to be high on. That, and in a way that's fine.
Yeah.
He's just someone who again, will eat innings when you absolutely need it.
Yeah. I do
They
want to
used a lot of the bullpen yesterday because Thompson couldn't even go 2 innings.
Right.
So
that's also an important thing to note, right? You just had to eat 7 innings,
so
8 innings
they had
for your
to do
bullpen.
what they had to do, and it's just tough because Stroman was good and should have been better. The result of the game should have been different. The Cubs should have won this game.
I do think and Marcus has been much better since coming back and rejoining the team from the injured list, and obviously he dealt with COVID as well. The one thing that I'll say, I do want to see him as we head toward the end of the year show us that kind of next gear that we know he all has. Like when you look, and again, it's his season has been very interrupted multiple times, right? So it's hard to kind of judge this fairly, maybe. But I think he's only gone 7 innings twice, a couple games in May against the Brewers and the White Sox. He's pitched into the 7th inning.
Yeah.
I think and if I'm kind of like reading through, some folks are not as in on Stroman as I think they should be, just, based on the ERA or, things like that, right? But for me, I think his peripherals look good. A lot of those numbers look good. What I would like to see, though, is deeper, more dominant starts, right? Like I feel like we haven't had too many of those starts from him this year where you're like, oh yeah, like this was a top of the rotation Marcus Stroman-esque start. That's what I'd like to see over this last month and a half. Give me like a 7-8 inning. I mean, even a complete game in there, right? Like I want to see a couple instances of that, like top of the rotation style pitching from him.
Yeah, and then that of course. I mean, I don't have the numbers right in front of me. Feels like maybe the ground ball rate is lower than it usually is. I know there was a few starts there where he was getting it back up. I didn't go back and look at the ground ball rate from today, but I mean, just overall, since he came back from the IL, was it early July, he's got a 2.21 ERA and a 1.12 WHIP. That's in that stretch of games. Like you said, he's had an interrupted season. First of all, just with the short spring, but then obviously coming up, getting hurt or not. He talked about for like the first few months, not quite feeling where he wanted to be. Then COVID, then the going back on the IL, this kind of thing. This is like the first real stretch of the season where he's felt like he wants to feel and is able to go out there every day and pitch how he wants to pitch. You want it, like you said, you want him to get more length. 4 2/3 inning is just not where Stroman wants to be. It's not where the Cubs want him to be. It's not where fans or anyone watching wants him to be at. So if he can just get back into getting 6 innings consistently, touching the 7 now and again. I mean, that's kind of how you want him to end the season. Now that he's kind of feeling in good health for the first time all year, and really has a long stretch of solid performances, if not really good, at least solid. Again, today probably could have been longer had the had the error not happened, but you want that next gear, that next step. You just want to see Stroman take that, and just to get back to where the kind of pitcher that the Cubs that he knows he could be, that we've seen a few times this season. But just that the Cubs, are going to need to rely on next year, because
I think that's kind of the key.
In a good world, in a world where they spend and get a frontline pitcher, Stroman could be a really good number 2, I think. And so if they're going to depend on him next year, that's what you want him to be consistently, as a guy that you can look at and say, like that's a guy who could be the second in our rotation and lead us.
It's
down
the nature of a big time contract. Guy that comes in with a lot of expectations, a lot of hype. I know a lot of people are not going to want to hear about the injury, COVID, the lockout, ramp up, and all that stuff. But I really do think that a lot of the underlying stuff has looked really good. And if he can end the year healthy, maybe show a little bit of dominance, I do think that's really the key is, where do they view him? How do they view him as they're building that rotation next year? And to your point, Ryan, he actually does have a career low ground ball rate for the 2022 season. That's his bread and butter. So not exactly sure what led to that, but I would expect that. Been fairly consistent throughout his career, so I would expect that to tick back up. But I think overall the body of work from Marcus has been good. even if it has not been to that level that I guess some people are hoping for of a big free agent signing.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I think that whatever happens the rest of the season, you just hope that he's taken some momentum into 2023, because I understand that he hasn't been perfect, and I understand that the start wasn't great. April was not good, or it wasn't up to expectation, but I think that there's a lot to like for him, going into next year after a full off season, post free agency and the lockout and everything, and you can just really focus on 2023, and hopefully the Cubs, barring free agency and some of the young guys coming up next year, hopefully he has a better defense behind him.
Absolutely, that's
and I think that's very
key
because he had the ground. He had a lot of ground outs in those first 3 innings before the fourth, and we sat on the couch and says like, oh, we're seeing a lot more ground outs tonight, and he had a lot. There were a lot of rockets hit off him at Wrigley the other night or last week. So for the type of pitcher that he is, he really does need a at least a above average defense.
Yeah. The shots fired in the chat at you, Corey.
Well, yeah, I saw. What about my glasses?
It said, no, Carlos says, you look like Sogard with those glasses. Oh, yeah, okay, there you go.
Well, I can't see without them, but now I take great offense to that.
You're sitting in Luke's chair. You need the readers.
Yeah, I have permanent readers. But so, all right. I think that's good on Stroman. I am really excited if the Cubs spend some money this offseason, which they're rumblings that they're going to do, right? They should do. We deserve them to do, as Cody always says.
Yes.
Like Marcus Stroman coming into a better team, more hype on the team. He'll have a little bit, I think, of a chip on his shoulder. Even if this is an okay year, he'll want it to be better. We know that about him no matter what. I'm excited for that, Marcus Stroman, because I think the hype for that is going to be very real. But I do want to ask you, Cody, I saw on social media today that today, in real life, somebody bet $100 on the Chicago Cubs that we're talking about, to win the 2022 World Series. They're technically not out of it, right? Because they're like 16 games out of the wild card. Was this you? Were you in Vegas earlier today? Was this you?
Listen. Whoever made that bet, they did it through Caesar Sportsbook. I'm not that soft. I use PointsBet, guys.
Facts.
PointsBet. I would never, if I were to make that bet, I would have done it on PointsBet because it's the best way to support CHGO. But
the best way.
We just got a new PointsBet ad, and I'm really excited to read it. So you guys ready for that?
Let's do it.
Okay. PointsBet Sportsbook is counting down the days until the football season with a new offer every day until the season kicks off.
Every day?
Every day, Ryan.
Damn.
From now until September 8th, PointsBet Power Hour will unlock a new daily offer from 12 to 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. So if you're on the East Coast, that's 11 to... Is that 11 to 1? No, it's 11 to 12.
Wait, hold on.
Or no, it'd be 1 to 2. Whatever. 12 to 1 Central Standard Time.
What
We're
just
doing
happened?
time
Start
zones.
over.
I'm really bad at math.
It's 12 to 1
zones.
Central Standard Time. If you're in Eastern Time, 1 to 2.
1 to 2.
Count backwards from the other side.
Yeah, I'm really bad at math, guys. There's a reason I'm on this podcast instead of doing math. Sign up for PointsBet now using code CHGO to also get risk-free bets up to $2,000. Don't miss out on your chance to get daily access to free bets, boosted odds, and so much more now through September 8th. Download the PointsBet app today and use code CHGO to take advantage of this limited-time offer. Don't just bet. Live your bet life with PointsBet. If you're someone you know has a gambling problem who wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER for crisis counseling referral services.
Nailed it.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I have to tell you about OWYN, which stands for Only What You Need. OWYN is a 100% plant-based protein shake that gives you nutrition that works as hard as you do. All of their products are free of artificial ingredients, allergen-friendly, no gluten or dairy, and easily digestible. I like to drink OWYN early in the morning when I don't feel like making breakfast or to go along with a meal to get that extra protein in my diet.
Ooh, extra
The
protein.
shakes taste great, and they don't have that heavy feeling like some other protein shakes you might have tried. They have great flavors to choose from. The cold brew coffee or dark chocolate are my personal favorite. And I first heard about Owen from Chicago Bears quarterback Justin Fields.
It's QB1, Justin Fields.
Also follows a plant-based diet. I'm QB1 today, right, for Luke?
There you
QB1
go.
today.
Yeah, you are QB1 right. You're under center right now.
Yes. And Owen and CHGO have partnered up to give you an awesome offer. You can get 20% off your first purchase at liveowen.com with the code CHGO20. Join me and Justin Fields and try Owen. Only what you need. That code again, CHGO20.
Nick Moriano, if you don't believe us, Nicholas Moriano, one of our CHGO Bears guys, go on his Twitter or his Instagram, go follow him. He posts that like every day. And he works out at like Bears Fit or something like that.
Bears Fit. It's in Vernon Hills.
Yeah, in Vernon Hills. And they'll post a picture of him holding Owen right afterwards. He's drinking that.
And he does all these Bears, three
yeah.
important things, Bears recap videos on the Bird app. And it's really good if you're in the Bears and you want to know what's going on at training camp. But I believe Nick does it because he knows that he just looks really good in these videos. He's just all about the vibes and having great hair. Me and him are very relatable people, I feel like. And so yeah, he's a great follow.
I was going to say Nicholas is, more if you're looking for the protein shakes to get that better physique. I need the extra protein, but I'm not the best,
right.
Physique model. Getting back to this
Cubs
Cubs
about
game,
Ian Happ now?
We can talk about Ian Happ. So Ian Happ, 2 home runs in this game. Ryan, I know, you had that pun over the weekend about Ian Cincinnati, right?
Yeah.
Do we have one for Washington, or did they convince Ian that he woke up in Washington today, and that's where in Cincinnati today? And that's where this game was played.
Well, I mean, I think it was safe to assume on Saturday that legislation started being passed to change that town's name to Cincinnati, named after Ian Happ. 2 home runs today. That might be happening out in Washington D.C. nowadays.
We'll allow it.
That might be happening.
Was it I saw on Twitter the District of Columbian?
Oh, I did see that one.
All right.
I don't know. He is having himself a week. He's having himself a month. He's having himself a year. Ian Happ, I mean, the All-Star came, went, trade deadline came, went, and he hasn't really slowed down. His WRC plus is
126.
Can I
126 right now?
Can I ask the chat the question I asked you guys on the couch?
Please.
Sure.
Okay, so when we were on the couch watching the game, I posed the scenario of what if the Cubs, they extend the qualifying offer to Contreras but are unable to get an extension.
No extension, right.
And perhaps he signs with another team. Let's just assume he signs with another team. So they don't get that, but they are able to extend Happ and perhaps they extend Nico Horner. How will you feel about that in terms of where the team would be headed into 2023?
You got to say that one more time. It's just
So,
break it down, make it simple.
No Contreras extension, but you're extending Nico now, and you're extending Ian Happ.
Yeah,
that's what we're saying.
That's what we're saying.
Well, you obviously asked that to the chat. I mean, it's to the point where I think the Wilson Contreras extension is very unexpected if it happens. That's kind of be a surprise if it happens. But extending Ian Happ, extending Nico, those, especially Nico, he's so young. He has a lot of team control. I guess if you can lock him up long term now, not have to go through arbitration, not have to worry about signing him to 1-year deals and then trying to extend him later on. That's if you can extend him for a while, as young as he is. I think he's 25. Mm-hmm. He's almost a year younger than me, which is crazy to think. That's a guy, regardless of if he is the shortstop of the future, he's got a place on this team somewhere. I think he's proven that all year. You obviously want to see him continue that throughout the rest of the year and beyond, but I think you can kind of feel confident that he has a place on this team somewhere for the long term.
First year of arbitration is next season.
So if you can get him
3 years,
if you can get him extended for a while, prior, have to go through arbitration, because we know the arbitration process can, affect relationships between front offices and players. We've heard that throughout the league, that stuff like that happens. So if you can avoid having to do that and not even having to worry about trying to get a deal done before going to arbitration, like if they can do that, lock him up long term, like that's ideal. Happ, I mean, I think he's proving this year that he can also he's made like significant changes in who he is as a player and as a hitter that would make him. I think that would make him a solid long-term piece for the Cubs as well. He's gonna be 28 next year or something like that sometime soon. I know he's 27 already.
Right, yeah.
So maybe
he's 3. His birthday was recently. He's 3 days into his 28.
Oh, he just turned 28.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. Oh, I do remember that. You also think that the minor league system has a lot of really good outfield prospects. I know Brennan Davis. We'll talk about him in a sec, but that's someone you hope comes up in 2024 or 2023. Sorry, I forgot what year it was. 2023 PCA, maybe the end of that season or the next year. I mean, a few other guys that could be up in the next couple of years. So the Ian Happ one is a little different than the Nico one, I would say, but I do think you sign him, that's a good piece. Or you extend him, that's a good piece to what the Cubs are trying to build.
It would be nice to extend Nico. No offense to David Bodie, right? But it would be nice to have somebody get an extension that everybody's like kind of pumped about, right?
Yeah.
Like, again, no offense to David Bodie, who got, I think, the most recent extension for like a position player. Whole separate issue. But
Did his come after Kyle Hendricks?
Did, I think.
Yeah,
right?
I think
18,
so.
something
Yeah.
like that?
Okay.
It would just be, that would be nice for everybody to be like, hey, they extended somebody, and we're all happy about that. But back to Happ, yeah, 2 homers tonight. He is 1 shy of 100 in his career, so that is a milestone to keep on your radar as you're watching the Cubs any night he's playing now. We were joking because Ryan brought that up to us when we were getting ready for the game, and he said he only needs 3. And we were like, okay, we got to plan for that. When are we going to talk about that? Our guy Joey behind the camera tonight, needs to get his graphics ready.
Well, we thought we had a couple days, at least.
Right. And then when he hit the second one, it was early in the game. And we were like, oh, man, he's really feeling it.
Yeah.
This might happen tonight. We might need to be ready tonight.
Yeah.
Didn't happen, but soon.
Yeah, I mean, Happ 126 WRC Plus live after tonight. He's a 3-WAR player right now, behind only Nico Horner per Fangraphs. He's hitting 282, 455 slug, 360 on base percentage. I'm trying to do the math in my head real quick, unless this thing loads. But that's like a 9 something. Am I wrong? Am I doing the math right? No.
I don't think we're a math group.
My God. No, it's an 816 OPS right now, which is free and Happ. That's definitely a good mark for his career. And then again, it's been consistent over the whole season. It's not like he's been up and down. I mean, he's had a couple, maybe a rough patch here and there, but for the most part, he's consistently been good. And he's a guy that you kind of maybe look at a little more cautiously, just because he's had up and downs throughout his career. But he also has shown different. I think he has, just kind of talking to him and talking to hitting coaches, that there's things that he's changed, little things he's fixed that have proven to be helpful in transforming him as a consistent hitter,
right.
Consistent ball player. That if he just kind of keeps at that, it should honestly do wonders for who he's going to be in the future as, again, a consistent ball player, which he's been all season. You really want to see that he hadn't finished the season that way. But I think you can feel confident in that he has, figured something out. Sometimes guys don't reach their ceiling until around this age, or even get close. So it's that could just be the situation. Happ's starting to, break through where he was caught at before this year.
Well, and he's an above-average hitter from both sides of the plate, if you're looking at WRC+. So as a lefty, as a righty, against both, splits of pitcher, above-average hitter. And I know that, there was some discussion, I think, last year that he only really turned it on once the season went in the toilet, right? And there was some discussion amongst folks that, do we care that when the team was really performing well, or, when they were in first place in the earlier portion of the year before the trade deadline, he wasn't performing very well. He was really struggling. And then when the stakes are very low, he turned it on and had a great finish to the 2021 season. Now, the stakes have never been particularly high in the 2022 season, so I guess we don't have an answer to that. Yeah. But do either of you care about that? Do you buy into that? Because like when I look at this, I'm with you. The outfield situation in the future is very crowded. So like what I think of Ian long term or where he fits in long term is a more difficult question to answer. But he's always back to his rookie year. If you're looking at WRC plus, he has always been an above league average hitter. Whatever the circumstance, he's figured it out by the end of the year, including 2021. So to me, like, no, I don't really care if the team is bad or the stakes are low.
To me, the value I see in Happ is just the fact that, you know, we could talk about all the guys that are going to be coming up next year and even the year after that. They're all going to be real young. You got to have some veterans on the team to mix in with it. And I just think Happ has – I don't know if you can call him a leader. I don't think that's a thing. But I just think that you have to have a good mixture. And I think that at this point, again, Ryan said he's 28 next year at the very least.
And just turned 28 apparently?
Yeah, so he'll be 28 on opening day next year.
Yeah, he'll be 28 next year. And we've seen it all season this year. And I don't care what anyone says. Like, in April, the team was trying to compete.
Sure,
they were, you know, they were trying to win. I don't know. You take that for whatever you want, like the way you want to look at it. I don't blame you if you don't want to count even the games in April. But I don't know. To me, like, all things considered, to me, extending someone like Happ would just mean that you have a veteran here for the next coming of next young prospects that can be a nice veteran piece that can help young players along the way. I feel like he's at least got good relationships with guys on the team and people respect him and stuff.
Yeah.
And even during some of the bad years, people liked him on the team and people, you know, even the fan base in a way was cheering for him, even some of those bad stretches. So whether it's him or Wilson, I don't know. I'd love to have them both here, but like, you know, to me, if they, like, that's the way I see it is, you know, if they were to extend Happ, it's like, okay, well, you got a nice little veteran piece to help groom some of these young guys, you know what I mean? I wish it could have been Rizzo, almost. Whatever, but like, you know, you get what I'm saying. Like, that's kind of like what his role would be, and the fact that he's a guy who just gets on base, man. Yeah. He was an all-star, didn't even have more than 10 homers at the all-star break. How often do you see that at the all-star game, man? Like, no. Especially for the type of player that he is at the position that he plays. Yeah. Like, I think that there's a lot of value for him. I get not being, like, in on him because, like, it's like the first real full year that he's put together. But I think in terms of just finding those veteran pieces to go with, I feel like he deserves a chance to at least be part of whatever is to come in next year after. So that's how I feel.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I said, you know, be cautious, right? Be cautious about, like, putting full stock in Ian Happ because it has been really just this season that's been consistent all the way through pretty much. All his other seasons have had ups and downs. Now he's kind of putting it together. If he can finish it off this season, then you get a little more confidence. He does well again next year. Okay, then you can feel confident that he really has become the player that the Cubs want him to be. Yeah. So that's why I think you take a little more caution with Ian just because of, like, his past ups and downs. But you can still definitely, like, have faith that he has become the player the player the Cubs want him to be because he's shown it all season. Right. And it's, you know, and he's an all-star for the first time in his career. His numbers are, like, approaching or at career best across the board, like strikeout rate, walk rate, all this kind of thing. Like, his approach is really good at the plate. He's made changes that have helped him, and I think I would feel great for success for him.
I think I'd feel differently if he was like 30 or 31.
Yeah, he's 28.
But yeah, he's still in his late 20s, and like there should still be a few more years there of at least something close to what we've seen this year. And I know the outfield situation is tricky, but there's also a DH.
Doesn't say the DH.
You know, like, I don't know what that's going to be next year or whatever, but I think that having that DH is very beneficial for this type of conversation.
I think he's a great sort of. Is he going to be? If you're looking to be competitive next year, will he be that star of stars? No, probably not. but I think the offense that you're getting from him, and especially where we're maybe hoping the Cubs are going to make a big splash in free agency, just looking at the positions of where those guys play, he feels like a really good piece in a lineup that if they're able to add some star power to it, Happ is a really, really nice complementary piece in 2023. If he's able to continue performing like this at the offensive level, I think, where you slot him in the lineup, but Ian Happ is a 5 or 6 hitter at in least. A deeper lineup, right? Like that feels really good. I think that lineup feels good.
I like Jarrett's comment. He says, while the games may not have mattered to making the playoffs, his back was up against the wall last year as possibly being non-tendered, which I was like, again, I had to tweet tonight.
That's a great point.
Once again, apologize for all my Ian Happ slander over the years. But, I thought he should have been non-tendered last year. And he's still arbitration eligible, which is important because
that's a great point.
Free agency.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is if he didn't kind of have that turnaround the last 2 months of the season, there probably was an argument that he was going to get non-tendered.
It was a discussion.
Right? It was. I think it was a discussion already.
Yeah.
And if the last 2 months were and 2 more months of just struggles, that's probably. I mean, you've seen the Cubs DFA other guys, the championship guys. Mm-hmm. That's definitely something that potentially could have happened. But he turned it around in the last 2 months. He kind of earned his shot again this year, and obviously all-star, taking advantage of that this year. Again, that having his back up against the wall is one thing when you're kind of playing for your job. That's obviously huge and gives you a little bit more of a incentive to get it going. But he's kind of kept that going this year and become not only the more of a leader in the clubhouse with the guys. He has a lot of respect in that clubhouse. And then he's just bringing that on the field too. He's really bringing it every day. You saw it with the 2 home runs today. The home run in Cincinnati the other day. Ian Happ has done really well this year. You want him to continue that throughout the season, to finish the season that way, keep that going in 2023, kind of see what happens from there. But it's just you can feel kind of confident and have a little bit of faith that this is who Ian Happ is now.
Well, and so I don't know if you want to bet on where Ian Happ or when Ian Happ might hit his 100th home run, Ryan. But if you were going to do that, I know a place where you can do it.
Oh, you know what? I know a place you could do that too, Corey. PointsBet.
Fancy that.
Yeah, PointsBet, right? It's Cody's favorite app. He rolls over every morning. Doesn't even take a breath. The phone's already in his hand, and he's opening up his favorite app. But if you enjoy CHGO, absolutely, one way to help us continue to grow is to download the PointsBet app and use code CHGO when you sign up. Not only are you going to get 2 risk-free bets up to $2,000, but if you make a $50 or more first-time deposit, you'll receive a free CHGO membership, which unlocks all our web content, and you'll even get a free shirt of your choice from the CHGO locker. What does Luke call it? Sick drip, swag,
dope
whatever
merch.
It is. Dope merch. A lot of good stuff out there. If you have any questions, email pointsbet@allchgo.com and we'll help you out. And in case you missed it, online sign-up is available in Illinois. You can actually download the PointsBet app right now and register your account from start to finish, all from your phone. You'll be signing up with the fastest sportsbook, easier than ever, so you can start living your bet life in seconds. What are you waiting for? Once the game starts, don't just bet. Live your bet life with PointsBet. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700.
I love the chat because they're all congratulating me on my same game hit parlay. Shout out to Nikki Two-Bag because that was a sweat.
It was a big moment in the office. Everybody was very excited here for Cody to hit that bet.
Cody was up on the TV watching it. He was looking into Nick Madrigal's soul.
The Cubs games may be low stakes, but the stakes in the CHGO offices are always high.
That said, Brandon Hughes ruined the MLB hit parlay because I needed Kybert Ruiz to get a hit. And in his last at bat, he didn't even make an out. He got hit by a pitch.
On the leg. You don't win every time.
I'll take it. I'll take a 1-1 night on the hit parlays, guys. We'll be back tomorrow to ride again.
So I want to address this comment real quick by Carlos. Joey, if you could scroll up. Carlos says, "Can I say it's good to enjoy a Cubs post show / podcast where the hosts aren't screaming at each other to make a point, unlike those other guys?" this is just for show. We like hate each other. You should have seen us watching this game. We were screaming at each other. I was telling Cody to get the hell out of the way of the TV.
That? I didn't see that.
It's up a little further. I want to say. See if we can find it. I mean, I was yelling at Cody to get the hell out of the way.
Making up user comments.
Yeah,
it's right there. It's right there. I was yelling at Cody to move his big ass head out of the way of the TV. Corey, I don't know. He was yelling at me for something, probably saying something about, I don't know. What were you yelling? I'm just kidding, but this is kind of funny. We do appreciate that. I mean, we'd like to think we're a good show, right? Even without Grandpa Stuckey here. We're good. I think we got a good squad going, so appreciate
Ryan
that, Carlos.
exuding confidence. We like to think we're a good show, right?
Right?
Yeah, we're a damn good show.
Well, you should have seen me a couple months ago. I was screaming anyway because the Cubs were pissing me off because I cared about winning. And now I'm just like, I need Nico Horner to keep getting hits, and I need other guys to keep proving that they'd belong on next year's roster.
If you want to talk about exuding confidence, Jody, I feel like I'm nailing.
I'm going to skip over that you just called me Jody.
Yeah, he called him Jody. It's a mix of you two. Like,
it's all right.
I called him Corey earlier because
it's fine.
The names
Joey,
I didn't even
Cody.
mean to get it this big of a thing. Keep going, Corey.
Yeah, Joey, Cody, Joey. I do feel like I'm nailing the role of Luke Stuckmeyer tonight, like his understudy on Broadway. I haven't dated myself with any like movies from the 70s or 80s or things like that, but I maybe I'll work one in the end here. But I think the only other thing from the game before we get to some. Oddly enough, we have some interesting things to talk about from Arizona this evening and from this morning. The only other thing, did you guys know that Franmil Reyes could move like that? I mean, Franmil wheels tonight in Washington.
Fran Wheels. I think I actually tweeted that the other day, like Fran Wheels, more like Fran Wheel Reyes, something like that.
I didn't see that. Yeah.
I don't know.
Guy can motor.
Yeah.
No, that's you. That's you.
Is that a tie-in to who you got?
We can do who you got.
We
here.
might as well just do who you got now.
I may be playing Luke tonight. I still lost, so that's consistent as always. Nico did not have a terrible game though. Hard hit ball, could have been a hit, was a ground out, but he also had a double. So I'm not 0 for tonight.
Yeah. So
I think I'm in the clear.
For everyone else, do we not have a graphic, Joey?
I do not, only because there was no pregame tonight, so by the time that the game...
So the recap is that Cody had Franmil, I had Nico Horner, Ryan had Nick Madrigal, and Luke, even though he is on vacay, had Marcus Stroman.
And Joey had Jason Hayward.
And Joey did have Jason Hayward.
Right, and Joey had Jason Hayward.
As he always does.
So Cody... an RBI triple is going to get you the W here tonight.
Yeah, no. Surprisingly, no one picked Ian Happ. If he was
still not in Cincinnati,
I was gonna say if he was still in Cincinnati, I would have picked him. But now we know that when he's playing in Washington, District of Columbian, right? Is that what it's called?
District of Columbian, yes.
Columbian. Then you got to pick Ian Happ as who you got. Like that
was
know
a
that
mistake.
now.
You and I made. I mean, Cody won, but it was a mistake. Somebody should have taken Ian Happ.
Yeah, we know that now.
Yeah. Though if I had taken him, he wouldn't have hit any home runs.
So what's our score at now, Cody?
All right. So with my win, I now lead 18 to 17 to 12 to 1 to 1. Jared and Joey still trying to get on the board here in mid-August.
Come on, Jay. Hey.
At least you have
give him
one.
one.
I tried to give you the point last week.
Give him one last at bat, Rossi.
When I got to be like I believe filling the role tomorrow will be our friend Kevin Wells, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm not going to say that I'm rooting against Kevin. Mm-hmm. However, as someone who does have a who you got win, I don't really want Kevin to join the club.
The battle for who
I kind of like
breaks that tie.
Yeah, like
it took Corey a while, but he's like
if Brendan ever finds the time in his very busy schedule, right, to join pre and post game, I wouldn't want him to win either. I feel very proud of my singular win, and hopefully at some point in the next month and a half we're able to double that total. But all right, so a couple things from Arizona that are pretty important for the Cubs. Ryan, this was news I wasn't really expecting. We knew that Brennan Davis had undergone the surgery and that it wasn't as bad as when you hear back surgery kind of seems, right? It wasn't with his discs or anything like that. It had gone really well. I knew he might do some baseball activities.
Yeah.
But he played in an Arizona Complex League game tonight.
Yeah, no, that was I want to say it was July 25th, so exactly 3 weeks ago today. I want to say we talked to Jared Banner, and he said the Cubs' hope was to get Brennan Davis. What's that? What's so funny?
Brennan said,
Brennan.
"Someone get Corey out of that chair, please."
He said that the Cubs' hope was to get Brennan Davis into games in about 2 to 3 weeks. I did talk to him again a little over a week ago at Wrigley. It was kind of same schedule. Kind of mentioned around August 15th, which obviously is today. Then I believe Tommy Birch of the Des Moines Register had a tweet yesterday saying that Brennan Davis is expected to go out to the Arizona Complex League, start rehab assignment, or start rehab. Yeah, I guess it's called a rehab assignment there. But that's kind of all fit that timeline that we were given 3 weeks ago. It was like that's the back end of it, 2 to 3 weeks. Obviously, we're 3 weeks in now, and so I don't even remember. I think I just said, I'm like, hey, is Brennan Davis playing today? Like, I think we were just talking about him. Like, he might be playing. And I looked at the box score. Sure enough,
there he is.
Sure enough, he's DHing, batting second, down for the ACL Cubs. Not the game you wanted to see out of him. 0 for 3, 3 strikeouts, had a walk and scored a run. But I think the best thing is that he's in games. Like when he had when you first heard back surgery, like that was. I don't know how many of us expected him to even play games, let alone this early.
Well, I mean, when the news first came out, I was terrified. I was like,
when you first hear back surgery, you think really bad things.
Right.
We knew, like, once kind of the smoke cleared and we got a little more clarity, we knew that a lot of it was on the best case scenario side of things. But even this feels like it was it was early June when he had the back surgery, so not even 2.5 months, and he's already starting to play in games. That's the best positive. Even though he didn't get a hit today, he's playing games. Like, Brennan Davis is playing games. He, I don't know how long he'll end up having to be out in Arizona playing before he can go maybe up to South Bend, or maybe if he goes right back to AAA. I believe Jed said last week or not too long ago, that the expectation is not for him to make his major league debut this year. I think that was the thing on 670 or something like that, like last week, is what Jed said. I believe, right? Him. Yeah, I think it was him and Amaya, right?
Yeah.
So that's that's one thing. I think expecting him to have made his major league debut anyway was kind of like holding your breath for something that probably wasn't going to happen.
At least after the injury.
Yeah, exactly. So, but now you see, I think there's a scenario where he's playing at least a few AAA games out in Iowa at some point this year, which bodes well for if he goes to play in the Arizona Fall League. He proves he's healthy, goes into spring training, like.
Just try to make some of that development time back.
Make it back up.
They have to send him to the fall league, in my opinion. Like, you got to do whatever you can to get him as many at bats as you can. I think the fall league helped Velasquez. I think that's a big reason why Velasquez is on the Cubs right now, because he had a huge fall league on top of his really great second half in Iowa last year. But yeah, in terms of just getting at bats, the Cubs have to send him to the fall league. If he stays healthy the rest of the the season in the complex league, I
would think as long as he's feeling good, I would imagine that's the plan. I would think. I mean, we don't know that.
And the reason that I say that they have to is because I don't think, like, we were sitting on the couch earlier and we were talking about how AAA is like it's the highest level of the minor leagues, but is it really though? Like, a lot of guys who are there are ones who are kind of like the Mark Leiter Juniors of the world, where they're
the chat loves.
Yeah, they're guys who are borderline major leaguers, but are in Iowa because they're just not as good as some of the other guys. And like Caleb Killian's there right now, so you're gonna have a few of the random.
It fluctuates. The competition, but
a lot of them are guys who are just really good depth. AA. And obviously lower, like, there's a lot more talent there, and we've seen that from South Bend and Myrtle Beach and even the Tennessee this year. But to me, like, if he goes and plays in the fall league and gets however many at bats, it only makes his trip to Wrigley next year sooner, in my opinion, because he does that. Say he has a good spring. I don't know if they're going to start him on the open day roster, but maybe it
could be a very quick call up next year.
Like a couple weeks in April. I don't know. Like it, but playing in the fall league again is just more at bats, and like they really need him to do that because he is the top prospect.
Yeah, it's development time that he can get back from what he's lost this year.
Yeah.
Like that's huge. And I mean, I know Cubs front office has talked about that's something they're considering. I'm kind of with you. I'm like, if you really want to help him get that development time back that he missed, like the Arizona Fall League is a good place to do that. So if that's the thing, if that's what they ultimately do, like that's just a place to like let him get at bats, let him keep getting him back in this rhythm of playing in games, because he missed so much time that if he can, if he say he comes back, he's starting right now. You got about 6 weeks left in the minor league season. Then that's kind of interrupts it right there. But if you can get him right into the fall league, I don't remember exactly how long after the season that goes, but that's quickly going to get him right back into that rhythm. Not let him take too much break after he's had 3 months now without games. Like I think that's a good. That's definitely if they're just considering it right now and not sure exactly if they want to do that. I mean, in my opinion, like that's something that definitely needs to be a discussion, because that could be very beneficial.
I just think that it's really good news. I mean, first of all, he's a great guy, so it's just nice that this is going well and he's able to get back out there and play baseball. But from the Cubs' perspective, the fact that there's even a possibility to make up some of that lost developmental time is just such great news when you think back to the kind of panic that ensued when this news first came out. So, I think he may or may not have made his debut this year. It seemed maybe unlikely, I guess, depending on how everything was going, if he had stayed healthy. I think, if he does go through the fall league, plays well there, I would think it's pretty unlikely that a scenario ends up that he breaks camp with the team, because they're going to have to plan for him not to, right? Just because of the way this is all played out. Yeah. But if the fact that he's able to come back now, have at least a month and a half of complex games, or if he does go back to AAA or wherever is the most convenient place for him to continue progressing, you add that to spring training, and like you guys said, it does make a potential quick call-up next year somehow all the more possible, which, again, a couple months ago, we're like, I have no idea when we're going to see him now. We just want to see him back on a baseball field.
Yeah, and then another thing that goes along with that is, like, yes, I think we kind of are all in agreement that he probably should go to the AFL and play, but at the same time, that also disrupts a regular offseason for him. So that's another reason why it's like he doesn't have a regular offseason. They may, I think it was Caleb Killian this year, that ended up having like kind of an extended spring training because of obviously the lockout and stuff like that. But then the Arizona Fall League kind of extending him into November playing games. So maybe that's something they could do with Brennan Davis, where it's like, okay, he's playing in November, not getting a full off season of kind of things. Maybe he's not, I don't think he's going to break camp with the Cubs in the first place, but maybe that's something where they're like, okay, we can get him a few more weeks of extended spring training before, make sure he's kind of all the way full go before we put him right back into game action. And then I still think that there's a potential for a quick call-up next year. Maybe not in the first few weeks, but
if he gets back to looking like himself, because he was struggling before the injury, but then, of course, we didn't know about this major back injury that he had. So
and
it's sort
like
of
that. We think that's probably something that had something to do with it, right?
I would think so.
So if he obviously has to get back to being that hitter he was, the player he was. That's a given. Like that, he's not going to get called up if he's still struggling next year.
Right.
But there's definitely a scenario where pre-All-Star break for sure, within a couple months, like
depending on how things are going.
Exactly. Definitely a scenario.
So, before we move on,
sure.
Debbie, she has asked it multiple times, and I feel bad. She said, "Can y'all answer when do we actually think the Cubs can contend again, realistically, and what would that lineup look like?" And the only reason I say it now is because we are talking about Brennan Davis, and it's like really hard to actually say when the Cubs are going to contend for a World Series. But to contend for the NL Central, it should be next year.
It should be next year.
It should be.
There's no good reason that it shouldn't be.
And it can be. It's like
the division's not that good.
Yeah, they have the obviously space under the luxury tax this year. Like, and then I think that was Crane Kenny not too long ago talking about being able to roll over the money.
Yeah,
for that
Tom talked about it. They all claim it's there. The money's somewhere.
If that's legitimate, louder than words. I hear you, Michael Collada.
If that's legitimate, then seriously, like they could go out and get a frontline starter.
Yes,
they could go out and get. Maybe if Matt Mervis isn't going to be up next year, a guy that can play first base for you, or just a lefty power hitter, a shortstop, whatever you want. Like those are pieces they could go out and spend some money on, and that the division isn't. No one's running away with the division.
There's
right now.
no good reason that it can't be next year.
There's definitely a scenario.
If the
where they
playoffs started
could.
today, Brewers wouldn't even be in.
Exactly.
Right.
So there's definitely a scenario where the Cubs could be right there competing. I don't think they'll compete for a World Series championship next year like that. A lot of things kind of have to go right for that to happen, but they can plug in some pieces from free agency, some call-ups, some guys that are young right now on the Major League rosters taking a next step forward where they can certainly be in the playoff conversation, even if it's just a wild card. They can definitely make a playoff push next year.
And there's no, with the way that they've restructured the draft and the lottery, you don't get the number one pick just because you finish in dead last, right?
Yeah.
It's a lottery, so the incentive isn't there. Jed has talked about how that's not the way to do. There's no reason that it shouldn't
franchise like
be
the Cubs shouldn't
next
be
year.
tanking purposely anyway.
Right.
And we've talked about that at ends, and I've done my rants, and I've read your
Next
comments.
great Cubs team, probably sometime after that. That depends on so many things. Guys like Brennan Davis, et cetera.
2025, if a lot of things go right, could be a year that they actually contend for a World Series. But this organization, with the market that they're in, the money that and resources that they have, they should be
contending
2023 for the NL Central Division in 2023. And if they are not, there will be more rants from me.
Tom Ricketts said that this is not the baseball Cubs fans deserve, like Cody did.
He did.
And 2023 should be when we see something different. So last thing, before we jump off, as we're
Getting off the
a
rails
little
here.
over an hour here, the last thing in
Sorry,
Arizona,
Joey.
Kyle Hendricks cleared to start rehabbing in Arizona. That came on Monday morning. So, Ryan, I don't know if you know the exact plan for this. The timing of it doesn't allow too much.
Yeah.
They're not going to rush it. And even if he starts a throwing program, then he works simulated games, then he does a couple rehab starts, that leaves a very short window, even if he were to come back. So I'm kind of guessing that's not the plan. This feels, correct me if I'm wrong, more like we need to get him out there and healthy for next year, and we'll deal with all where he's at come spring training.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is the tweet from Jordan Bastian out of Washington right now, Jordan Bastian on MLB.com. From earlier today, Kyle Hendricks' right shoulder is headed to Arizona to continue his rehab program. Throwing schedule still TBD. The clock is ticking on having enough time for Hendricks to pitch again this season, but the goal is to get him back to 100%, not to force a date of return. And we talked to Ross about that last week. I know Jed, when we talked to Jed, he'd mentioned Kyle getting an MRI, but didn't quite have the results for that.
Right.
When we talked to him, so we talked to Ross the next day. I want to say it was on Tuesday when we talked to Ross. But he said the MRI just showed he's getting better. Probably needs a little bit more rest. There's still some inflammation in there. So I think they're going to reassess in about a week. So this is a week ago. So I think we're kind of seeing that now to see where he's at. He wasn't throwing at that point. As far as him being confident that he'll pitch again in 2022, Ross said, I don't really know. I mean, I would start to, in theory, wonder how that's going to play out. Making sure he's not throwing for another week plus, starting to ramp back up and getting games. I think my main thing is to get him back on the bump, throwing bullpens and seeing how he feels. Let's get him healthy. I don't think getting him back in games is a top priority for everyone, but if he was able to get to that space, I think that's a win for everyone. So it really is like kind of how you're taking it is like they really just want him to be healthy. Like at this point, you kind of know what Kyle Hendricks is and who he is, and there's not a lot of development as a young guy coming in there. Like he's Kyle Hendricks, you know who he is. He's a guy that historically has had really good command. He hasn't had the stuff or the velocities kind of thing to just blow away hitters, but he's got good command, knows how to pitch well. That getting him back in for 2 games at the end of the season isn't going to change that, and it might if he's not feeling 100%.
Unless they win 20 in a row and finally get back in that wild card race, right?
Sure,
Cody? Yeah.
but in realistic terms, that's not going to do much as far as his own development because he's a 30-plus pitcher. I forgot, 32, something like that, 31 maybe. But they're really pushing to just have him get 100% healthy because if he's not and you try to throw him out there at the end of the season, then you run the risk of another injury and just kind of prolonging things, whereas right now, you got guys like Justin Steele, Keegan Thompson that you really want to you really want to keep going. Hayden Wesneski, Caleb Killian could both come up sometime in September maybe, and could eat up some of those innings where you don't need to throw Kyle out there just to try to win a couple more games at the end of the season. Like, I think the main priority for the Cubs right now is just making sure he's healthy, making sure he can go into his off-season program healthy and can doesn't have to take time off to just keep recovering, and just make sure when he gets to spring training 2023 they build him up the right way so that when opening day comes, like he's good. There's no more lingering shoulder issues or anything like that. It's just he's good to go as soon as 2023 starts. That's, I think, the main priority. If he's able to pitch again this season because he's 100% healthy, like Ross said, that's a win for everyone. But,
sure.
I mean, I don't think that's what they're pushing for.
I feel bad saying this, but, like, Kyle Hendricks has just really become an afterthought. Like
That's mean.
Is there room for him in the rotation in 2023?
I think so.
Because right now I'm thinking you're getting a top of the line starter in free agency. Then you got Stroman. And then I think Thompson and Steele have earned a spot in there too. So that's 4. And then you still got Killian and Wesneski, who are, you made a big trade for Killian.
I don't think either of those guys should start over Kyle Hendricks in 2023.
At least to begin the year.
At least to begin the year, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, Caleb Killian started already and has had a few rough outings, hasn't come back up. Hayden Wesneski has not started in the majors.
At this point, I can agree with you on Killian, but we'll see if he gets another run
Wesneski's
here.
not done. I mean, he's not. I just don't think we can say confidently right now either of those two should start over Kyle Hendricks next year. I think at least
they
to
have
start
the
year.
upside.
Yeah, they have the upside. For
I
sure,
go
for sure.
back to, and I once again don't have it in front of me, but Brendan and I talked about this before we knew that Kyle was going to be, kind of restarting this ramp up. I go back to Theo when he was talking about Yu Darvish, I think in 2018, where he said something along the lines of, if we rely on something that has not been dependent, that's on us, not fate or anything like that, right? And I think that's how you kind of have to look at Kyle right now. Get him healthy. You know what he can do when he's on. You know he's the type of guy that can make adjustments and grow later in his career. But if you go into the year depending on him to be your number 3, number 4, whatever, it's going to be on you if it doesn't work out. Yeah. So that's, I think, how you kind of have to think about that.
I think that's what we also talk about with pitching depth is, like, if you have a 5 of, like, a number 1 that you sign, Stroman, Hendricks, Steele, Thompson, and then you have good depth with a guy like Caleb Killian. You got starting pitching depth that can come up.
If you need to move things around.
Yeah, and then
things
obviously, we know pitchers get hurt. We know pitchers fizzle out, whatever. Things could change pretty quickly next season. I just don't think right now we're saying that Kyle Hendricks isn't part of the rotation next year. I just think he's earned that. As long as he can come back healthy next year, he's earned the right to. He's earned it just in his Cubs career that
you have to be measured in what you're expecting him to do.
Yeah, for sure. He's not a 1. He's not an ace.
On this day, August 15th, I'm with you, but I want to see Killian or Wesneski at some point at the rest of this year.
I think we will.
And if they have a couple good starts, and then both of them or one of them does well in spring, it's going to be a really interesting conversation.
Yeah. Like, it will be, for sure.
And this isn't even anything against Kyle Hendricks. It's just that even before the injury, he was in year 2 of more inconsistency in 2021, and he's older. I hate saying that. The guy was pitched in Game 7. The guy pitched the most important game in Wrigley Field history in 2016. The guy is one of the most underrated pitchers that we have ever watched in a Cubs uniform. But where the Cubs are at this point and where they're going to be in 2023, I just don't know how I feel about Kyle Hendricks being in the rotation to start the year. And
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
That I know I'm jumping to conclusions on August 15th and still not sure where we're at with Killian and Wesneski, but I think that their upside provides something more that what Kyle Hendricks can provide us in a point where the Cubs are not contending for a World Series.
Yeah.
So again, we'll see how those guys look in the rest of the season if they are able to make it back to the major leagues, but that's just how I feel regarding the Cubs rotation, and like if they really want to contend for the division next year, I think you just got to have 5 really solid dudes, and like
well, you need good Kyle for sure.
For sure,
you need good Kyle.
I think that's fair.
And I hope he gets back to that.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
I want to say one last thing
Sure.
is just, me and Brennan wrote, maybe if Kyle Hendricks just develops that slider, things will change, man. Like
there you go.
Maybe he's taking that time right now.
Which you can read over at allchgo.com when you sign up to become a member. I think that's what we have for you. It's been an honor to fill the role of Grandpa Luke Stuckmeyer.
Grandpa
Corey.
Tomorrow we will have postgame for you. I believe it'll be our friend Kevin Wells in this chair for Luke. You can compare our impressions of Luke Stuckmeyer. We'll see who does it better. It will be Cody's guy, Justin Steele, on the mound for the Cubs, going in with his 3.63 ERA against Patrick Corbin, who was, of course,
4-16
in those Juan Soto, do they want to tag that money along to just get rid of him, because he is 4-16 with a 7.02 ERA. See if the Cubs can get it done tomorrow night. Don't forget to use that code CHGO when you sign up for 2 risk-free bets up to $2,000 at PointsBet. And we will see you tomorrow, Cubs fans. Thank you for joining us, and good night.